All right, I'm sitting here with the lovely Maria, or Masha. She was my translator in the Donbass when I went the last time. Now, why was she my translator in the Donbass? Why did I specifically choose her? The reason I chose her is because she's a staunch liberal. She's an anti-war protester. And she had a set of beliefs about this conflict that I did not believe to be true. And everything that I told her, she did not believe to be true. She thought everything that I was saying was Russian propaganda, and I thought everything that she was saying was Western propaganda. And so I kind of gave her a challenge to come and see for herself. And it was a very interesting trip. So we're going to talk to Maria, and we're going to get her impressions. And we will see the conclusion of what took place. So now I should note that in the beginning of the trip, on our way down, we had several disagreements about what was really happening. And I said, you know what? We're going to meet my friend Thomas Roper. Thomas, for you guys that don't know, Thomas, he's a very prolific geopolitical writer. He's written 7 books. He's an incredible journalist, and he's been to the Donbass just as many times as I have. And so he is much better at articulating than me. I thought that he would be able to talk to Maria and maybe see her to kind of put some reason, not reason, but maybe try to kind of help her with her thoughts, because really she was struggling a lot.
Well, the normal impression of the Russian guys and girls and whatever who are influenced by what I call the Western propaganda, because there were many emotions and not really many arguments. So she was just emotionally telling what she's feeling, and when I tried to explain things, it didn't really come through. This is a normal way, which I see very often in Russia, and also with Western people. That's normal because that's the Western propaganda works. They are just pushing on the emotions, and when you are emotional, you are not able for a real fact-based argumentation. So at the end of the day, somehow I just told her, okay, well, I see. You will see it in Donbass yourself. This was, well, on some points, maybe I was able to make her think, but I wasn't really able to convince her. So the conversation ended somehow with the words that I said, really, okay, you go and we talk afterwards. But that's the problem, really, that the Western propaganda is emotional. So, and you know this yourself. When you're afraid, when you are hating somebody, when you love somebody, you're not ready for emotions. If we know this from many stories, just in private life, when somebody is betraying you, but you love the person, you are not able to listen to arguments. And that's how emotions work, and that's how the Western propaganda works. They show emotional pictures, tell emotional stories, and this switches off the analytic thinking. And that's what's happening, and she was an example for that. So I wasn't really able to convince her, absolutely not somehow. But I ended the conversation with, you're a good girl, and we talk when you come back.
Okay, John, let's start from the beginning.
All right.
Just as a background information, if you will, because it's not only true for myself, it's true for millions of people in Russia who are horrified by this war. We all have ties with Ukraine. Either it's blood ties because it's family members, or it's friends, or it's both. It's inseparable. We are the same people. Probably if someone from Ukraine heard that now, they would be denying that as vehemently as they could, but we are the same people, actually. We grew up on the same movies, on the same music, on the same literature. We like the same food. We have the same cultural references. We truly are as close as nations as it can only possibly be.
Okay.
The war with Ukraine is the most horrific thing that could possibly happen. I honestly do not have a vocabulary to describe that because it just shouldn't exist. So those words don't exist in my language or in English language or in any language, I believe, because it's just beyond horrors to imagine that we could go with war to Ukraine. Every day we hear how this war, how this horrors, how this aggression is unmotivated, how Russia went insane, how Ukraine is suffering, how it's absolutely undeserved, unprovoked, unreasonable, and how there is no forgiveness to anyone who is Russian, how we all, 150 million of us, support it, what horrible people we are, all of that. Well, you know.
Yeah, of course.
I think everybody knows that. I don't have exact numbers. I don't think anyone has, but according to different evaluations and they vary from 200,000 to 2 million people fled Russia since the beginning of the war. And I refuse to call it special operation. It is war.
Okay.
You know, they fled Russia just like Ukrainians flee Ukraine because they flee because they cannot stay here anymore. They suffocate here. They see Zs on cars, on billboards, even on socks, for God's sake, on everything. And it honestly makes you feel like you have no air. You cannot see this. Okay. You cannot see this. It's unbearable physically. When it started, I fled to the Far East to work in a rehab center because it would mean that I would stay within that rehab center and I wouldn't go out and I wouldn't be exposed to this Zs. And that was the only way to survive it, basically. Because I don't know, it's like you feel like you need to walk out of the window because you cannot live through that. This is what is done to the people of Russia by the media, by the news, by this continuous narrative that we are, I can say the bad guy, but it doesn't cover it. It's, 1% of what we are.
Right.
In the eyes of the world. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So this was the beginning for me. Sometime in April, I believe it was, you sent me the subtitles to translate from several interviews that you took in Mariupol.
That's correct.
And I was listening to what people were saying, trying to make sense of it, trying to convey what they were saying the best way possible. And it was very much like I was listening to the Russian side of the propaganda. It made me feel like, wait a second, that doesn't match. And they could not be the propaganda people because they are just simple people on the streets. They're not actors. It's obvious that they're not actors. And it was a very serious clash in my head. Later on, sometime in the beginning of July, I believe it was, a friend of mine asked me to help him to get his brother, who was from Volnovakha, that's a town between Mariupol and Donetsk, to get this person outside of Russia because he managed to leave Ukraine, leave Donbass through the Crimea, to get him out to Germany. So we worked out the route for that person. And of course we met in Moscow and I talked to that guy as well. And again, there was another first-hand evidence and another clash. So I had to have my answers, because what I was sure the truth was, as I refused to believe anything that Russia was saying, any Russian, it was all like, oh no, it's all Russian propaganda, it's all lies. I tended to believe what the West is saying. Those were my sources. And what I received from these interviews that you sent to translate and from this guy was saying was in absolute contrast to what I was receiving from all other sources. So when you said that you're going and you need a translator, I said, well, you of course can have a choice, but pick me. I'm a good translator.
That you are.
Well, so I was in a situation when I knew that I cannot go on anymore without having my questions answered. I had to know. And Thomas asked me, like, hey, they're bombing there in Donetsk. They have these mines, these butterflies laying around. It's dangerous. Aren't you afraid to go there? I'm like, Thomas, I don't care. I have to know, because not knowing is worse. Because not knowing is guaranteed doubts and frustrations and fears and shame. I mean, it's an incredible guilt that we all are feeling. It's a shame. It's like you are ashamed of who you are just because it is your passport, just because you are born in this country and this is your citizenship, and you're supposed to feel guilty and ashamed for that. It's unbearable. I had to go.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful to you that you made it happen.
Well, and on our way almost to the border, the hotel where we had rooms reserved, it got bombed.
It did.
And on one of your, I guess, pro-Ukrainian channel, would you call it that?
Let's say anti-Russian channels.
Okay, on one of your anti-Russian channels, somebody posted a video about how basically it was a fake and they were using actors to show...
Yeah, how they were using actors to show that there are dead bodies there, that they're actually not dead bodies, but they are actors, and bad actors, as they are playing the dead bodies and moving.
Yeah. And so, so one of the first things that we kind of encountered, I guess, was we were running around looking for a microphone cable. And we went into a shop, and there was a woman who was quite distraught.
Yeah, we went to that market because it's like electronic market where if you need to find anything, that's the only place in Donetsk where you can have hopes to find it.
Right.
And we asked around for that cable. And as it always goes, people get interested because we have a foreigner, so everybody gets involved into a conversation. And there was this girl who was really upset, and she was going through serious personal issues as well. And she saw me as some sort of a counselor, I guess, of something like that. So she shared, and we talked a lot. And she said, "I just lost." A friend. Apparently, she had a friend who walked by that hotel when it was bombed, and that person died, and the 3-year-old daughter of that person died as well.
Yeah.
Maybe on this video there was exactly the body of that person. The video was filmed from the inside of the hotel, so
like a surveillance camera.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not an expert. I wouldn't be able to tell. And I asked about it, and I was told by those who deal with it every day that it is normal for as they say, fresh corpse to sometimes move.
Sure, absolutely.
It happens, and apparently this is what was caught on the camera in this video.
Yeah.
But the cynicism of that, like, hey, see, that's an actor. When somebody lost life. It's insane.
Yeah. So let's talk about when we actually got into the Donbass, when we got to Donetsk and Lugansk. What was the first thing that actually struck you?
Okay, it took us a very long time to cross the border. So we the hotel was bombed, and we didn't have a place to stay, and it was already relatively late in the evening. So John called his friend, another journalist, Graham Phillips, who lives in Lugansk currently. And he was a wonderful host. He said, come over to Lugansk and stay, instead of Donetsk, go to Lugansk and stay there. So our first couple of days were actually in Lugansk. He hosted us, which was really super kind of him. Graham, if you watch this, thank you so much. You're wonderful. Thank you. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we arrived to Lugansk, and everything is covered with those Zs. Every vehicle, every bus stop, basically every surface, everyone wears chevrons with Zs. All of it. Please understand, in my head, this is a new swastika. This is the sign that Russia is turning into a fascist Germany. And then we go to Donbass, that we are, according to the news, destroying. Yes? And everything there is covered with Zs. How can that possibly be? If people hate us so much, if we are such an enemy, if we are such a villain, that if we are such a monster, that everything there is covered with the symbol, and the symbol gets complete support.
That would be like the Jews voluntarily walking around with a Nazi symbol on their...
Sort of.
With a swastika.
Sort of.
It makes no sense.
It did make no sense. I was like, what is that? Next day, we went to Severodonetsk. And it is the city which is in a similar condition as Mariupol in terms of devastation. It's horrible. Yet, they have no water, no electricity, no nothing. Yet there are people who stayed there, who live there in basements. We went to one yard, and there is a children's playground, and graves right on this playground, right there. It was the first biggest shock that I had when I looked at it live, when it's not a photo or, I don't know, some video that you watch on TV, but when you see it live. This playground and those graves right there. And there are people there, and they talk to them a little bit, and not a single one of them expressed any kind of negativity towards Russia. All the negativity was aimed at Ukraine. That was another clash in information, which was crucial to me. Like, how come you're not tearing me apart? I am Russian. It is my people who did that to you, and in my head. And the answer was, no. It's not this way. And then these conversations repeated in Mariupol, in Lugansk, in Donetsk, in Volnovakha. They repeated in all the places where we went to. So it was kind of extreme red pilling, if you will, for me to accept that. On the second day, because I would say it's second day, we had a meeting with Vlad Dainega, the guy who is currently a Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lugansk People's Republic. He was responsible for the negotiations in Minsk that lasted during all this almost 8 years. He was there on every meeting. And John was kind enough to say, like, hey, what would be your questions to that guy? So the questions that were asked to this guy were my questions. They might seem naive because they are of a person who has no clue. I had no clue. And it's true. I really didn't know. I wasn't following that much. attitude to that was like, during all these 8 years that preceded it from 2014, my attitude was like, this is internal Ukrainian business. Russia has nothing to do with it. Ukraine should resolve it themselves. Let them resolve it themselves. And I didn't look deep into that. It was like their business. I let them be. Mm-hmm. I am very much not proud of that now. I should have paid attention. I should have paid more attention. So this person, Vlad Denego, he was explaining from the start, because my first question was, how come that the people of Donbass are hated so much that they are being physically destroyed, basically, during all these 8 years? Why are they hated so much? And it's a 2-hour interview of explanation of what was happening, how it came up to be, how it reached this point.
He really went in depth. He was amazing. And I will just kind of note on a side note, for me, you know, I know what answers I want to hear. But the most important for me is to show the other side, show the other side what's actually happening. And if I use my mindset, that's not going to help anything. So I wanted to make sure that she asked her questions, because she has the mindset that a lot of other liberal anti-war protesters have. And so for me, this is very important to kind of reach across the aisle and try to answer these questions, to try to take away some of these myths, I guess, that are being said. So, okay, so go ahead.
So anyway, I received this explanation and the story and the whole story of how it developed, and how what started in February was basically unavoidable. Mm-hmm. It would have started anyway, sooner or later. Mm-hmm. That truly was no other way in that situation.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but I had to accept it, because it really was something unavoidable.
Yeah.
My question for the reasons for hate to everything that is, to the people of Donbass and now to everything that is Russian remained, though. And I got that question answered from another interview that we had a few days later with the guy who is a counselor, an advisor to the head of the Donetsk People's Republic. Mm-hmm. His name is Yan Gagin, and he is a high-rank military official, a very knowledgeable person, a very smart guy. You know, he helped us a lot. We went together to Mariupol to deliver humanitarian help, and in one of this, during this trip, he went to a school and found a bunch of books there in the school library and brought those books and showed those books to us. And this interview was about these findings. Mm-hmm. And these books are aimed at children school children from like probably 7 years old till the time they finish school. So they are different levels, starting from just books with pictures, because little children, they think in images. They don't really read much, but they remember pictures, to history books, to all kind of analytical books. So it's that literature that is needed for the education. And it is clear that from the early age, it gets put into the brains of children how we are enemies with Ukraine. Mm-hmm. That we are not brother nations like Russians think, that we have zero common cultural background, that doesn't exist, that we are enemies, that we should be hated, that we are basically being dehumanized in their eyes from the early age on. Imagine seeing that for someone who went to school and went and learned there that, well, there was Kiev Rus, Kievskaya Rus, the Kiev Russia, that Kiev is the mother of all Russian cities. There is a stone in Kiev with engraving on it, "From here the Russian land began." You know, and then you see the other side, what is taught to the kids in the Ukraine. And I still ask why. Why? Why all these lies? Why all this hatred being indoctrinated? And this is the reason why there are people in Ukraine. I know not all of them. I'm absolutely sure, just like there are different Russians, there are different Ukrainians, not all of them, but truly there are people of Ukraine who support and have supported these bombings of Donbass, this elimination of the population there during all these years. That was the answer why that happened.
Yeah. All right, so we went to Valhalla, to the hospital. Is that how you say it? Yeah, sorry. So we went there. We went to the hospital. We met the doctors. And how did you feel about that trip?
In Volnovakha, they held 600 people in basements. They held them hostages. They didn't let them go. There were patients, there were wounded people, there were civilians they could catch and put there, there were medical personnel, everyone. They spent months in the basement. We walked around some areas of this basement, saw where they slept, where they ate, how they lived there. And they are like, it's impossible conditions. At the same time, the Ukrainian troops found the storage of drugs in the hospital, broke into that safe, and got themselves high on those wonderful cocktail of adrenaline and opium, which makes you fearless, which makes you really high, which makes you do crazy things and not care. I'm sure it's fun. So they were running around, shooting at everywhere through the, well, it's just insane. It's like human hunting or something, I imagine. It's just crazy. They did, it's that kind of thing. And at a certain point when they were retreating, because they were running away from the Russians and Donetsk, so the Allied forces, they decided to destroy the evidence of that whole thing, and they shot from the tank. There was direct shot from the tank that was there, and we saw the hole in the wall that this shot left, to make sure that the building collapses over the people who were in the basement. Civilians. Children. They had 6 children born during this month in this basement. Like newly born children. All of them. Just to be dead. Just to die under the what remains of the building after you shoot at it from a tank. What's the reason to destroy a hospital? It's a hospital. They know exactly that it's a hospital. They received medical help from those doctors, even though they were Ukrainians.
Yeah. One of the very interesting things that I heard while we were there is that one of the injured people was a native English speaker. So either American or Canadian or British. And he was injured, not mortally, but to the point where he couldn't evacuate with the rest of the Ukrainians. So they shot him in the back of the head.
Yeah, not to deal with dragging of the wounded or something. Just they said that there were several bodies and their faces were disfigured, their fingerprints were removed so that they wouldn't be recognized.
Yeah.
So they were removing the evidence this way. Just shot them dead.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah. So that was the hospital. What else? What else did you?
On the last day, we went to the front line, to the town called Svetogorsk, and this is where they have active fighting. This is where, from about 4,500 people, about 1,500 people still remain. They hide in basements and somewhere, and in churches. There is a big church there where people hide as well, and they are terrified there. Apparently, 2 days before, there was a group of journalists who filmed them and put it online, and it all went to the Ukrainian TV as well. So people were recognized, and these people have relatives in Ukrainian towns. Kharkov was named for sure among these towns. And now these relatives of these people are hunted, and they say that they're like number ones to be killed. So these people are terrified not only because they are the targets for snipers, not only because they fear for their own lives, but because they also fear, and maybe even more, for the lives of their relatives, for their families who are in Ukraine.
Yeah. Which,
to me, is just beyond comprehension.
Yeah. So me and Nikita from, you guys have seen Nikita in my past videos, from Buhanka Project. And what was your feeling on seeing that town? I mean, the bombing was going on not far from us. You could see all the smoke rising. What was your feeling?
It has to stop. It somehow has to stop. I don't know what should happen for this to be over, but it should not exist like this.
That's true.
If I could take all these people and get them out of there, I would. If I could have some sort of a magic coverage to just cover them away so they're not visible and they are not, and it is not possible to harm them through that coverage, I'd use it. You really feel very helpless. Even though you bring humanitarian help, you bring all this food, you try to do something, but you still feel so helpless against this crime.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? You feel like you do what you can. And you also constantly understand that it is so little. And you know that you have to go back. Because being elsewhere makes no sense at all. You have to go back.
Yeah.
And do what you can.
Even as far west as Svetogorsk was, it was interesting because the people said, we do not want to talk to you on camera, do not film our faces. But when we are liberated, that was very specific, when we are liberated by Russia and we are safe, then we will speak to you all that you want. They want the world to know only when it's safe for them. Yeah.
Right now, they don't believe it's safe for them, and they are scared to death for their families.
Yeah, but they want their independence. Did you notice this? They don't want to be a part of a country that hates them so much.
They don't want to be part of Ukraine for sure.
So, on our way back, another thing that she has read on a bunch of her anti-Russian channels, the fact that refugees are treated so incredibly bad by the Russians. So I decided to stop at a refugee center. And we called, we got the director. We only gave them, 20 minutes notice?
Even less.
We gave them 20 minutes notice, so it's not like they could clean and make everything orderly. We gave them 20 minutes notice. So what was your opinion of going to see that that refugee center?
Well, it's like a pretty decent hotel, basically.
Yeah.
It's really nice. It's clean. It's very well thought through. Mm-hmm. They have great canteen with really great food. I mean, they eat better than I do.
Yeah, I know, right?
They really have great food.
Canteen is a cafeteria.
It's called canteen, or you can say it's a restaurant. Basically, it's simple, but in terms of food quality, it's a restaurant.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And they live there for as long as they need. Mm-hmm. There is no pressure or any time frame within which they need to move out, so they can stay for as long as they need. It's free. Food is free. They have a way to find work. Some people that I talked to have already found jobs so they can make a living. Mm-hmm. One of the women I talked to came with her son, and she already arranged everything. So on the 1st of September, her son will go to school in Voronezh. Mm-hmm. It's all possible. It's all provided. Mm-hmm. And they went there voluntarily. Mm-hmm. They explained to me how it works, because in the Western media it is said that we evil Russians, grab them, put them in buses, and just bring them to Russia for
labor camps.
Yeah. Like we eat them alive, we take their organs, we take away their passports, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't stop at anything when it comes to that, to those lies. Mm-hmm. The worse there is, the better. So it's like you put whatever there, it will be accepted, of course, because that's us, the evil Russians. That's what we do, right? So it's a really nice place. They are in really good conditions. They can do whatever they want. They can leave at any moment if they want, or they can stay for as long as they want if they want, and it's free of charge. When their only job was to get to the border. At the border, there were buses from different towns, because they were. The woman I talked to said that they had 8 towns to choose where they want to go in Russia, and she chose Voronezh. But there were 8 towns to choose, and they were brought there. That's how it went. There was one woman from Kharkov who constantly asked, when are you going to take my passport away from me? Like, why would we take away your passport away from you? Why? Like, because I heard that you take away passports and you then force people to work and don't give them passports back so that they would be motivated to work for free or something like that. I mean, crazy.
But this is what you hear in the Western media.
This is what's in the media, yes.
So, you as somebody who saw everything reported in the media, believed everything that was reported in the Western media, and was quite anti-Russian at the very beginning of this. Very anti-Russian at the beginning of this. How much of what you now know that you read, how much of what you read that you now know is not true?
All of it. All of it. The proportion of those lies, the scale of that is very much comparable with the scale of the horror of this war. It is that much. The cynicism of that is incomprehensible. It's just insane. There is zero word of truth in that. I thought, maybe there are exaggerations. The truth is the first victim at the war. I mean, it's a famous phrase. But maybe at least half of it is true.
Yeah.
No, nothing of it is true. Nothing.
No,
so it was a sweet red pill to know that my country is actually not a villain, and I don't have to say that country about my country. Because it is my country. And what it's doing is explainable.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. I am absolutely sure that this interview is going to open a lot of eyes, just because of your background. And
we'll see
where we were at the beginning of this adventure and where we are now at the end of this adventure. It's quite a transformation, actually, to see. And I watched her transform during this whole trip, and it was really amazing. It was amazing.
It is an absolute eye-opening, and I know that I will go back.
Yeah. Well,
somehow I will go back.
Yes, we will go back because I need a great translator. By the way, she is hands down the best translator I have ever met in my entire life. Her words are absolutely fluid. I've never seen anything like it in my life. So, absolutely brilliant. If anybody needs a translator, well, you guys need to reach out for her. So, anyways, John Mark Dugan. And we hope that you found this interview enlightening. And make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you very much.